In this episode of Gareth Jones on Speed, I attempt to do something really smart that could also be really stupid. Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed, the first episode in 2023. Our 19th season? I've lost track. But as ever, I'm on my way to North Wales. You were waiting for me to say that, weren't you? Yeah, I spend a lot of time driving between North Wales and London, or vice versa. And this year, over the Christmas period, because I'm actually recording this programme the day after Boxing Day, so I'm in that period known as Crimbo Limbo. Yeah, it's not quite New Year yet. So, I'm doing something really smart. I'm driving to North Wales in an electric car. Smart, yeah, we're in the future now. We don't have any excuses anymore. We all should be driving either battery electric cars or hydrogen fuel cell cars, or at least some form of hybrid car with energy recovery, because what's the point of throwing your energy away when you can recover it using your hybrid system? That's how I see it. So that's the smart part. The daft thing is when I'm choosing to do it. Now, you know what traffic is like in Britain. It's pretty awful most of the time, most of the place these days, isn't it? You're fighting for space, you're in queues, there are 20 mile per hour speed restrictions in town. So driving around in town, you're kind of better off travelling on a scooter or a bike or even public transport, dare I say it, than driving around in a car. So that bias, that shift from driving everywhere to what we now call personal mobility has begun. And if you like driving, in order to maintain your personal mobility, go electric. So the smart thing, driving to North Wales in an electric car. The very smart thing I'm doing is driving to North Wales in a really smart electric car. Yeah, I've got an absolute cracker. I know I have, because it's an Ioniq 5. It's a Hyundai Ioniq 5. Or actually, it's not a Hyundai Ioniq 5, because in the last 4 days, Hyundai have announced that they now self-identify as Hyundai. Hyundai? I'm not sure if it's Hyundai or Hyundai, but it's definitely day more than die, which I find a bit confusing because my reference point for Korean pronunciation is Daewoo. Do you remember Daewoo? And they spelt their day D-A-E, but Hyundai is D-A-I, but they want us to call it day, not die. So it's Hyundai, not Hyundai. I know I've had this conversation before about how to pronounce this, and I'm sure there are people who listen to this show who are probably better at speaking Southeast Asian languages than me, because I don't speak any Korean. Tiny bit of Japanese, tiny bit of Chinese. So as Korean is sort of somewhere in between those two languages, I should be able to work it out. But Hyundai Ioniq 5. Now, you know the Ioniq 5, it's gorgeous. There's no other word for it. It's just gorgeous. I've always admired Hyundai. I've always admired this South Korean car manufacturer with an unpronounceable name. And you know I'm a big fan. I've driven their internal combustion engine cars. I've driven many of their electric cars, but it's taken me a long time to get into an Ioniq 5, and I was offered the opportunity just before Christmas, where the lovely people at Hyundai got in touch with me and said, Gareth, we realise you haven't driven the Ioniq 5 yet. Would you like us to send one over? Wow. Isn't that great? I said, yeah, but not right now. Could you send it over a couple of days before Christmas Eve? which they did. And so I've got this car until January the 3rd, the whole Christmas period, which is amazing. Perfect for what I need, because on Christmas morning, I woke up at home in London, but Tycho, my oldest son, wasn't at home. He's been flat sitting for friends, cat sitting, I should say, down in Old Street, which isn't far from where we are, just the other side of Islington in North London. Hang on, I can alter my speed. We're down to 40 miles per hour now on the bottom of the M1, so I'm setting the cruise for 40 miles per hour, and I am relaxing. There you go, we're down to 40. And yeah, loads of traffic joining from the M25. Here you go. This is why I thought this journey might be a bit daft, because I think there's going to be loads of traffic on this motorway for this journey. And so the demand on electric charging points on the journey is going to be high too, as more and more of us shift to electric driving. So, re-electric driving. Tycho's down in Old Street, which means I need to go and collect him so he can come and have Christmas dinner at home on Christmas Day. But where Tycho is in Old Street is just in the congestion charging zone. Now, there are all sorts of restrictions on driving in London these days. We're all in the ULEZ zone, the ultra low emission zone. So unless you've got a car which is, I think, category 5 diesel and category 4, I think that's right, petrol, Euro 4, then you're not allowed. Well, you could drive, but it costs you an extra 12 quid. And then when you drive into the congestion charging zone, there's an additional charge on top of that. So for these sort of local journeys in London, it's going to be cheaper to call an Uber or to do it on public transport. But if you've got a nice EV, you can twinkle your way down there into the congestion charging zone, pick up your son and bring him home. And Tycho noticed that as I was using the speed restrictor on the car, which is really, really handy now that vast swathes of London have got a 20 mile per hour speed limit, you set the speed limiter and you won't accidentally get a speeding fine, I hope. So that was the first thing about this car. Got in, bang, 2 buttons straight away, speed limit set to 20 miles per hour, and hopefully I won't get a ticket. And I was able to go into the congestion charging zone. So I was able to ferry Tycho around in London. So there you go. Electric cars, if you live in or near a city, you're going to be like London. Wherever you live, it probably already is in where you are now, there are going to be city controls over vehicles, personal vehicles. So you really should think about going to electric if you can charge at home. And I can't really charge at home because I don't have off-street parking where I am. But I did, for the first time ever, charge my electric car at home. I understand that you probably shouldn't run electric cables across the pavement to where your car is parked. It's a trip hazard, it's dangerous for children, it's awful for people who have reduced vision or are blind. They're not expecting to find a cable on the floor. So I ran a cable across the pavement. It was only, 4 foot from the wall of my house to where my car was parked. So I ran a cable and I put a mat down over it as well, and a traffic cone, because everyone's got a traffic cone at home, haven't they? And I put a traffic cone covering part of the cable as well to show, oh look, there's a cable, what's this? Alert. And I did it for overnight and I didn't get a ticket. Now, I don't know how it works, whether someone will come and knock on your door and say, oh, Mr. Jones, you realise you're running a cable here, you can't do that, you've got a warning, don't do it again, or whether you find you've got a ticket on your car for some reason. I just don't know how that works, but I didn't get a ticket. I got away with it, but I didn't really need to charge. The car was delivered to me with some 82% charge, so I could have just got in the car, headed off to North Wales and charged en route. In fact, because of the battery capacity of this car, I could have done the entire journey without recharging. But I'm going to recharge because when I get to North Wales, I'm not certain if I can recharge at my sister's house where I'm staying without putting undue pressure on her home electrical system. And I'm learning that new thing of if you've got an electric car which will charge super fast using rapid chargers, which are available now, then you don't need to fill your car up all the time. I was discussing this in the programme where I was driving that MG4. If you've got a rapid charging car, stop at the motorway services, 20 minutes, bang, you go from 20% charge to 80% charge. And that is comparable to a short stop at a motorway. So that difference between the inconvenience of an electric car's slower recharging and the convenience of a rapid refill for a petrol or a diesel car is starting to narrow. And this car has got, I think, the fastest charging rate of any electric car I've driven so far, including, I think, the Tesla S, the Model S that I had many, many, many years ago. I think, I'll need to check this, but I think this car would recharge at 200 kilowatts. I mean, that's really rapid. The battery capacity on board here is 73 kilowatt hours. And this model that I've got is the long range one, the bigger battery. There's a base model with a 58 kilowatt hour battery. But this is the long range. There is another model above this, which is 4-wheel drive, electric motor across the front, one across the rear wheels. This one is only rear-wheel drive, which means it's slightly lighter and will be a little bit more energy efficient. I think. There is an ultra-long range version, which I think has got a 78 kilowatt-hour battery. I'm not sure if that's available in Europe. I think you can only get that one in America. I really adore this car. I remember when I saw the first picture of it, 18 months ago, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because whilst I've been a great admirer of Hyundais for many years, their styling has been handsome, good, but not beautiful. They've been really smart and good looking, but not beautiful, until I saw the Ioniq 5. Because I'm sure you had the same reaction as me when you saw it, which was, that's a Lancia Delta Integrale. It really looks like Giugiaro designed this car. He didn't. This car's design was led by Luke Donkerwolke, who is the head of Hyundai Group Styling and Design, I believe now. There are people who work beneath him responsible for the car, but ultimately he's the guy who says this is what we're doing. And I think Hyundai have really found their, they found their brio. I'm going to say that because, no, brio's the wrong word. It's an Italian word and they're not Italian. They've found design confidence. It's been coming for years and years. I think it started in the other part of the larger Hyundai group, in Kia, because I think the first smart looking car from that group was the Kia Sportage, not the Mark 1, but I think the Mark 2 looked great, the Mark 3 looked gorgeous, and then slowly across all Kias and Hyundais, they are starting to look absolutely crisp. And this car is crisp. Look at it, it's all straight edges, straight lines, a great diagonal cleave down the side of the car, which makes it look poised, like it's leaning forward, like it's ready to go, like a Lancia Delta Integrale. I've joked on the programme before that my ideal car, my fantasy car, would probably be a 4-wheel drive built by Hyundai, who make some of my favourite cars, and it's an EV, but built in Wales. Sadly, this car isn't built in Wales. I think it's built in Korea, but it's also built in India, I think, and I think Indonesia. So I'm guessing that the Indian cars, where do they go? Do they come to Europe? I'm guessing the Korean cars come to Europe, but a lot of Hyundais are built in Europe, of course. They've got factories in Eastern Europe. I've said this before, I'm sure, but we think of Hyundai, I'll stop now. Hyundai, we think of Hyundai as a Korean car manufacturer, but really they're much more like Ford or Honda or Toyota, who build more cars outside of their home country than their own home country. They're a true multinational now. They started in South Korea, but there's a great deal more to them than just their Korean sensibilities. So it was a shock when I saw this car. Wow, that's absolutely brahming. I haven't said that for a long time. Brahming, lovely looking thing. Couldn't wait to get one. And then when I saw one in the flesh, again I was gobsmacked, because it's huge. Despite looking like a Lancia Delta Integrale, it's much bigger, much bigger. Do you remember a car called the Ital design Lexus Landor? And Giugiaro, as you know, my favourite designer, who, as it happened, designed the Lancia Delta, along with lots of other gorgeous cars in the 80s and the 90s. Giugiaro decided to come up with a car that was actually based on the Lexus GS 300 platform. Now, you know that car, it's equivalent of a Mercedes E-Class in terms of size. But Giugiaro did two things. He chopped the boot off, made it slightly taller and quite a lot shorter. It still had a V8, a turbocharged V8 if I remember, possibly even twin turbocharged, so it had loads of performance. And it was a premium car, a luxury car, but it was a hatchback. And that's unusual. Over a certain size, we stop doing hatchbacks, don't we? We do SUVs. When cars become a certain size, they stop being hatchbacks. They get taller metal down the side. They get more rugged looks, more ground clearance. But a hatchback will have slightly smaller wheels, a slightly lower ground clearance. This car has got whopping wheels, 20-inch wheels, and that's what makes it look like it's a smaller car until you see it in the flesh and you can make a comparison with a Golf or a Focus or an Astra or, you know, the classic sort of middle-sized hatchback. There are, I can't think, any large hatchbacks of this size. And I looked into the comparative size of this car because when I saw it in the flesh, I thought, wow, the Ioniq 5 reminds me of the Lexus Landor, the Ital design Landor. And I looked into the measurements and they're very similar. In fact, the Ioniq is slightly wider, slightly longer, and slightly taller than the Landor. It's a giant hatchback, and I like that because we don't all need SUVs, do we? We think we want an SUV, but most city people don't need an SUV, do they? If you live in the countryside, you might want an SUV for all those reasons, but it's a city car, go for a hatchback. So go for a giant hatchback. It's so wide inside, it reminds me of my old Sora, my old Toyota Sora. It really is. Oh, the passenger's sitting way over there and I'm way over here. And the interior is beautiful. It's white leather on the inside, sort of on the grey side of white. Not cream, but grey. So the doors are all white leather, the seats are all white leather. The detailing of the coffee drinks holders in between the two front seats, covered in white leather. I bet that's going to get stained by coffee. It's just gorgeous. And it's got acres of real estate, digital real estate, in front of me. It's got a long screen. Actually, it's cheating. It's not really one screen. It's two identical screens. One immediately in front of the driver and one for your navigation and Android Auto and media and everything in the centre of the console. It makes it look like it is one because it's in one moulding, but there are in fact two separate screens, which I kind of like, because if a screen fails, you probably only have to change one of them, not both of them. And I wonder how long those screens are guaranteed for. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? If we've got a digital screen device, we don't tend to keep that much longer than 10 years. I'm thinking about your phone, I'm thinking about your smartwatch, I'm thinking about your television, I'm thinking about your iPad. You know, we move on, we come up with new technologies there every 10 or less years, 10 or fewer years, perhaps I should say. Zog would have corrected me. So, you know, how long are these screens going to last? Are they going to break down? Are they going to fade? Are they going to bleach in the sunlight? Will one of them break? Will you have to replace one of them or both of them? These are good questions for these electric digital cars that we drive around in these days. Despite not being an SUV, this car manages to have a flat floor. The battery pack is low and slim, which means it's got a flat floor. If I want, I could put I'm driving the car now up the M1, I could put my leg across past the bit between me and the passenger seat, and I could actually, you know, kick the passenger's feet if I want, reach out and stretch my legs out left and right, full width. You know, that's a luxury thing, isn't it? That sense of space. The elbow rest folds away in between the two front seats. I could reach out there. There's a nice, low, easy to access storage space there. There's when you fold down the there you go, look at that. This car comes to a halt when traffic does. I love that, especially when you're recording a program, because you know, my full attention might not be on the road, but the car is. There's loads of elbow room here, and of course space, as they say, is not only the final frontier, but the ultimate luxury. And so you get that sense of luxury in this car because of the huge amount of space around your elbows and your shoulders and your knees. And it's the same in the back as well. That is a proper three-seater in the back because of the width. You could get 3 people there. So it's a great family car. This is okay, hands on the wheel. It's a great family car. Is it a driver's car? Initial reactions, no, I don't think it is. It doesn't feel lively like that little MG4 that I was driving the other week. It feels a little more inert, a little more stolid. It's not sold as a driver's car. I think there's going to be an Ioniq 5N or N5, is that what they will call it? You know, N is the sport sub-brand of Hyundai. And I think that's coming soon, and that will be an absolute blitz. That truly would be the Integrale version. It's bound to have more power than this version. I think this version has got, let me try and remember, is it over 200 PS, I think. 200 brake horsepower and 20, is that right? Is that how it works? 218 PS? Can't quite remember what the figures were. But it's got power in reserve, but I'm not using it. I made a deliberate choice to drive this car in eco mode because I'm going on a long journey. When I get to short journeys, I'll switch to sport mode or normal mode when I get on quicker little roads in North Wales. But if I'm going to sit in traffic on a motorway, I might as well go in eco mode and save myself some time. If you think about it, you know, the more energy you use, the longer you have to spend charging. And an electric car, that changes the length of your journey significantly. So driving more slowly will mean you will get there quicker. I know, outrageous, isn't it? Outrageous. Oh, sorry, hands on the wheel. Apologies. So this car is stunning looking outside. Oh, and one of the reasons I think it looks so tantalising is the finish on the car. It's not glass, it's not matte, it's kind of satin. This colour outside, it's somewhere between silver, white and grey. It's on the grey-silver side of white, and it really is lovely. You kind of, when you see it, because of its satin finish, the temptation is just to stroke it. I just want to stroke it. It is so lovely looking, and it looks like it's hewn out of something very expensive because of that. And the wheels, 20-inch wheels, whilst massive, big black swirly spiral centre design and detail around the edge. They're really good looking wheels. They've gone their own way. They're not mimicking any other wheel that I can imagine. This is truly an original bit of design. And I think the wheels, the scale of the wheels, the design of the wheels and the sheer scale of this car all add to its presence. It has amazing presence because of all those things, not only its size, but it doesn't look like anything else. Well, apart from the Lancia Delta Integrale used to look in the 90s and the 80s. And part of Hyundai's newfound design confidence has come from looking back into its past. They did a version of the Hyundai Pony. The Hyundai Pony was a fairly straight-edged looking car, which I think Giugiaro's Ital design had a big hand in designing. And that was a smart car of its age. And Hyundai claimed that one of the design influences on the Ioniq 5 was the Pony. Yeah, I can see that a bit. But I think its biggest design influence is the Integrale, which is a better looking car than the Pony in my opinion. Actually, this car I'd say is even better looking than the Integrale. You may have heard me say this before on the programme, but I love the way that the future looked in the past. Do you know what I mean by that? Futuristic designs, even from the 1920s and the 1930s, American streamliner trains, or visions of the future from the 1930s, the 60s, the 50s, always look more futuristic than the future that we actually got to. But this car looks futuristic. The way the grille is managed, that sort of slightly hooded, edgy, straight line grille, the square details, the digital details, I'm going to call them that, of the lighting, lots of little tiny square pixels have become an essence of the design. I'm going to walk around this car later on and talk about that in more detail, but it truly looks futuristic. Is it the best looking electric car around at the moment? I think it's better looking than most Teslas, which look a little Sierra jelly mould for me. Do you remember the Probe? The Probe 2, I think it was called, the Ford Probe 3, which was a version of the Sierra before we saw the Sierra. It looked a little jelly mould to me. And I kind of like straighter edges. And this has got a kind of a 70s straight edge future quality to it, where the Teslas don't. They're handsome, they are lovely, the Teslas, but I think this is much sharper looking than a Tesla. Is it sharper looking than an Audi electric car? Yeah, most Audi EVs just look like Audis, don't they? They don't look that special. That line of delineation between Audi's internal combustion engine car design and their electric car design is much reduced now. It's very blurred, isn't it? What else have we got? The Jaguar I-Pace. That's very smart looking, beautiful looking. I'd say this is as good a looking car as the I-Pace, but it looks totally different. It looks modern in a very different way. It looks more modern than the I-Pace. So respect to Hyundai Design for coming up with a beautiful, elegant, stylish. This is a sort of a manager's car, isn't it? I think if you were, on the corporate car ladder, this is a huge step up from the older Ioniqs and the previous Hyundai electric vehicles like the Kona, which was really smart, but this is smarter. It's got edges to it. Yeah, you can probably tell I'm very impressed with this thing already. It's got, I think, did I say a 73? Yeah, I did tell you about the battery capacity. And I bet, since I've got on this motorway and we've been hit with 40 mile per hour traffic restrictions because of sheer volume of traffic, this is going to be a long journey, which probably means I'm going to need to stop to empty my bladder before I need to recharge. Yeah, one of those examples. We said it years ago, didn't they? All you need is a car that goes longer than your bladder, a little bit longer than your bladder, because you're going to stop at some point. But yeah, I'm wondering how this journey will go. I'm using Android Auto, but I'm still using the car's own navigation system, which was slightly confusing earlier on. I had to switch from the Android Auto screen. I was getting commands from the onboard nav which didn't tally with the navigation map on the screen, which was coming from my phone. So hang on, what's all that about? So yeah, as you can tell, I've had a great start to 2023, driving a car I've been dying to drive for a long time, and I'm thrilled I've got the chance to do it. Right, North Wales, here we come. I'm not in North Wales yet, because I stopped for a wee, really. I did need to recharge, but more than I needed to recharge, I needed a wee. So once again, that old adage of what's bigger, the battery capacity or your bladder capacity. So curiously, normally when I go up to North Wales, I go M1, M6, M56, A55, depending on which part of North Wales I'm going to. But for some reason today, when I was on the M6 round about Walsall, just north of Wolverhampton, the navigation of the car said, get off, get on the M54 and go up to Wales sort of via Telford, Shropshire, that way, which kind of makes sense because I'm actually going to Mold a bit further east in North Wales than where I usually go, which is Conwy a bit further west. So, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And immediately I made that decision. I suddenly thought, oh no, there's going to be no services on the M54, are there? No, there aren't going to be. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to wee. I'm bursting for a wee now. I need to charge fairly soon. Oh, I need a wee. But decided to follow signs for the first services I found, which is Shifnal Services, which I haven't been here for ages. The last time I was here, I remember I was in that C4 Cactus Citroen that I had. So that was, 2017 or something like that? Anyway, I'm here, and there are 2 GridServe fast chargers. Arrived, plugged in quickly, had to go for a wee, because that was the most important thing. Set the car up charging, had a quick wee, got a coffee, came back and realised there are a row of Tesla chargers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think. More than that, possibly. A row of them. Just, in fact, are they car chargers up there as well? I wonder who they are. I might have to go and have a look. Because Tesla have opened up some of the locations of their supercharger network to non-Tesla owners. Now, if you've got a Tesla, you turn up, you pick up the charger cable, you approach the car, and it recognises the car. The car opens the hatch covering the charge point, and off you go, charging. Now, in order to be able to use Tesla chargers when you don't have a Tesla, you need to use the Tesla app, which I have on my phone. But you need to add a vehicle, and I can't do that because I don't own a Tesla, and it's asking me for the vehicle owner document, all sorts of VIN number and everything. I can't do that. I haven't got a Tesla. And there should be a button which says charge your non-Tesla, which will allow you to use the Tesla Supercharger network locations that are open to non-Tesla charging. But there was no button on my phone for charge your non-Tesla. I'm told there should be. Now, I could go through the whole process of trying to apply the VIN number of this car to that app, but I'm only going to have this car for a week, so there's no point doing all that stuff. Slightly frustrating, because I know Tesla superchargers can dump energy into a car really quickly, whereas the GridServe charger that I'm on is operating at round about 40. It was 39 kilowatts when I looked at it earlier on, and it said it would take 29 minutes for it to achieve 80%, and when I arrived here it was about 40%. So yeah, if I could bang this car up to 80%, that would do me. That's fairly efficient. I can go to my sister's. I might be able to charge at my sister's overnight. If not, I know a number of charging locations in North Wales that I could use. So that's fine. That's absolutely cool. I'm really surprised at the number of Teslas that I am watching as they come through to the supercharger grid there. Actually, there must be I think there's 5 or 6 Teslas. Another one just turned up, all charging, and there are 8 points. So it's the most efficient use of a Tesla supercharger network I've seen. And the thing is, I don't even know if this Tesla location is open to non-Tesla users. I know that the one in Flint Mountain in North Wales, my part of North Wales, is. So I might try that, because the great thing about this car is it will charge at a ferocious rate. So if I can get a rapid Tesla supercharger, I can dump miles into this car really quickly. Still working the problem. Actually, I'm going to wander over there and have a look at the other chargers, see what they are. Gareth Jones on speed! I just got out of the car while it was charging and went over to the Tesla supercharger bays. And every single one was occupied by a Tesla charging. And there were 3 waiting, and a constant stream of cars, everything. Model Y, Model 3, Model X, Model S. They're all represented here. It's amazing the penetration Tesla have got. But hey, I went over there because I thought I'd seen 2 electric charger towers at the end of the Tesla bays. And I went up to have a look, and no, they're not. It's the... what do you call it? So that local distribution node of an electricity grid, a bunch of big steel boxes with "do not touch, you'll be electrocuted." The sort of local distributor station that's clearly looking after probably not just the Tesla chargers, but these chargers that I'm on as well. So no additional non-Tesla chargers up there. And I've been trying to find out if I could have actually used these Tesla chargers here. But why is it when you get to a charging point, A, it's always raining, and B, there's almost no phone signal? Oh, finally it's come back. Now I've opened my phone again. It was really struggling. It was on that H Plus thing where it's using the GSM network rather than the 3 or 4G or 5G. It really is slow and pathetic. But finally it's loaded, so I'm going to have a look on this and see what I can find out about where and when I can definitely use a Tesla recharger. I'm going to have a go. But yeah, it always rains, doesn't it, when you're charging an electric car? Always rains. I am now at 84%. I'm going to wait till it's 85%, then bang, I'm off to see me sister.
Please follow M54.
As you can hear, I'm back on the road. That stop, that recharge using the GridServe network there, which worked a treat, charged at 39, took me from around about 40 something to 85%. It did it in what I estimate to be about 35 minutes perhaps in total, which was a perfectly reasonable stop. By the time I'd wound down, recorded a little bit for this program, had a coffee and was ready to go, it was done. That's doable, that sort of thing. And it cost me 23 quid, that charge, just to give you an idea of what it's like charging on the public network. Now, you probably hear a bit more background noise than before. That's because it is really horrible. The weather is really, really horrible. Raining, and I was all misted up, so I was just going for a full demist. Let me just turn that off. It's a bit quieter. Right. Okay, other observations about this car already. Do you know, the recharging cap on this car is the second best recharging port cover on any car I've driven so far. The winner, I think, is the cantilever hinge that the Audi, what was it? e-tron Sportback. That one had a lovely cantilever action. This one has got very elegant, very Thunderbirds, very James Bond cover open thing. But I did rather like the way that worked. And the other thing that is worth noting on this car is this is probably the best driver aid setup I've driven in a long time. Can't remember how good it was compared to a Tesla from when I last drove a Tesla. That was some time ago now, and I'm sure that's improved. But this is way better than not only that MG4 that I had recently. That was passable, but when you get into a system that is really sorted, you really appreciate it. I'm just trying to remember how to engage the cruise control. Come on, cruise control. Alright, no, I don't want limit, I want cruise control. Pressing buttons. The lane guidance is just exquisite. it completely knows how to drive down the centre of a lane. You know, very often you find cars slightly hunt and slalom their way down a lane. Not this car. It goes nice and deep into the lane before just slightly adjusting. It's almost as if it's looking for the opposite of a racing line, but kind of a late entry into a corner, so you can see around the corner. It's really good. And the way that it's configured at the moment, where if I take my hands off the wheel for, 12 seconds? Let's do it. Let's see, here we go. 1 elephant, 2 elephant, 3 elephant, 4 elephant, 5 elephant, 6 elephant, 7 elephant, 8 elephant, 9. There we go, 9, and I've got a flash on the screen that reminds me to touch the steering wheel. That was 9 seconds, or 9 elephants, roughly a second. It doesn't feel like it's bothering me all the time, and I don't feel that when I've got my hand on the wheel that I'm fighting with the driver assistance. I feel like I'm just letting it know I'm here. It's really finely balanced. You know, Hyundai have been doing this for a long time now, and it's been good on the other Hyundais I've driven, but on this car, it just tracks straight and true and nice, does it properly. Bit like a Lexus. Do you remember one of the first very impressive experiences I had with driver assistance was in a Lexus LS, what do we call it, the 600H, is that what it was? And I remember driving all the way from Derbyshire to London barely without doing anything. It just took control. It was in control, it was comfortable with itself, it was confident and smooth. And this car, a Hyundai, does now what a Lexus did, 10 years ago. Now, that tells you two things. One, Hyundai, I think, are now capable of making cars as good as any. And they're offering sort of Lexus level luxury and quality on a car that isn't Lexus price. So what does that mean for Genesis? Because, you know, Genesis is the premium Hyundai brand. Shares a lot of stuff with this car. But this car feels luxurious. It really feels special. So the new electric Genesis, which I haven't driven, I've driven the internal combustion engine car, and that was deeply, deeply impressive. I'm curious as to how good those Genesis are going to be. Because the Hyundai, phenomenal. That makes me think as well, maybe it's time for Hyundai to come up with a budget brand, you know, an entry level brand. I wonder what that would be called. Anyway, plenty of good things to report about this car. Why am I not surprised? Can you hear that sound? Whee! That is the sound of a Pod Point electric vehicle rapid recharger at Lidl in Llandudno Junction in North Wales, as I once again, for the umpteenth time probably, recharge the Ioniq 5. I've had a very good charging experience with this car. Do you remember me saying at the top of the show that what I was going to do was going to be a good idea but also a really daft idea? Well, the daft idea was deciding to drive an electric car over the Christmas and New Year period. Only daft because everybody was out in their cars, visiting family, buying presents, dropping presents, all that. And so whenever I arrived at a charging point on my journey, there were occasions where I had to wait. I think the longest I waited was probably 15 minutes to get on a charger. And that was when I took the car from North Wales to Doncaster in Yorkshire to do a family thing. And we got to somewhere on the M62, I think, near Yorkshire, and there were probably 4 or 5 chargers and lots of cars waiting. But the protocol, people are really sweet, they're really nice. Oh, I'll only be another 10 minutes, I'm only charging up to 80%, so you'll be all right. So, you know, with that sort of level of communication and courtesy, charging electric car was great. We are at saturation at the moment. The electric car charging network is growing rapidly, but the number of electric cars, and therefore the number of people out and about in electric cars, is also growing. And so, there might be occasions where you have to wait to get a charge, but it is very much easier to get a charge these days. I have to admit, I did charge in a way you're not really supposed to. I used a 240 volt extension cable and the adapter when I was staying at my sister's house, and was able to charge at something like 1.5 kilowatts whilst I was staying at my sister's. And you do that overnight and you get 20% charge or something like that overnight, which is great. That's like free charging. That's how it feels. Oh, free electricity. Yes, I know it's not free. I know you're paying for it, but it's a lot cheaper than the electricity that you pay for on public charging points. I have not found an ultra rapid charger to test the Ioniq 5's ability to charge very, very quickly indeed. Might do that on the way home. I know it can be a little expensive, and I know there's a ultra rapid charging point in Milton Keynes, which might be about the best place for me to recharge on my journey from North Wales to London. But the car is ace. I think I said it was on the grey or silver side of white when I first got it, but no, having studied the car in Welsh light, it's very definitely silver. That, not matte, but silk, I think. Silver. I think I said that already. And there are a couple of things about the car that I finally got to grips with that I was unable to earlier on. The whole connection with Android Auto, I'm now completely across. Two things that bug me. I haven't yet worked out how to get the wing mirrors to tucking automatically when you lock the car. That's a settings thing which I will explore. But the only thing about this lovely car, and it truly feels like one of the most luxurious electric cars I've ever driven, the only thing about this car which I don't understand, and why doesn't it have this? A rear wiper on the rear window. Very often the view out of the back is obscured by all the muck that gets thrown up onto the back window, and that MG4 I had recently didn't have a rear wiper, and this doesn't as well. Have rear wipers gone out of fashion? If so, why? Why was there a period when every car had one of those and now we don't? Have I missed something here? Has there been a memo passed around that I don't know? No. Also, I've bumped into a couple of other Ioniq 5 owners. Not that I'm an owner, but I bumped into Ioniq 5 owners on the journey who all praise their cars. Oh, it's lovely, it's so quiet, so easy to charge. All those things that I say about it. It is softly sprung but firmly damped, which means you get a compliant ride that is smooth and quiet and yet responsive. It's not the sports car that the MG4 was, but having said that, I've only really driven this car in eco mode. I don't see much point in driving around in sport mode and just using up electricity unless you're in a hurry and able to get somewhere to charge quickly. And in eco mode there's plenty of oomph in this car. I'm not sure what the figures are, but I think the 0 to 60 time on this car is 7.5 seconds. I may be wrong on that, but it wouldn't surprise me. It's got loads of oomph, and I know I keep going on about this, but it's just so pretty. Hang on, why is my pod point saying welcome? Has it stopped charging? 15 minutes to 80%. I should say that right now it is about 6:45 on New Year's Eve. Yes, it is 6:44 on New Year's Eve, and I've got to head up to my friends Carol and Steve before going out for a big night out in Conway for New Year's Eve. So here we are, the end of 2022. I know you're listening to this in 2023, but 2022 seems like a period where we've moved on with electric cars. not just the infrastructure, but the cars themselves. There's more choice if you want an electric car than ever, and some of them are just beautiful. And I think in terms of design, in the electric cars I've driven so far, this Ioniq is by far the most handsome. It's a stunner. Wherever I've parked it, people have said, that's good looking. What is it? A Hyundai? I said, no, it's a Hyundai. Back to that again. I have only good things to say. But I'm not quite done yet. I will wrap this review of this magnificent car up for you before the end of the programme.
Gareth Jones on speed.
Hello from the future. And by that I mean it's now 2023 for me. I've been up in North Wales over the New Year period, had a marvellous New Year's Eve, and here we are 48 hours later on the 2nd of January, and you can still hear how husky my voice is from overdoing it on New Year's Eve. So it was a good one, and it's been an amazing trip in an extraordinary car. This is almost certainly the best Hyundai electric car, Hyundai electric car that they've made so far. It feels special. It looks special. Everything works so easily. It's also got some features on this car that I haven't even had a chance to explore yet. There is a snooze mode on the two front seats. If you want, while you're charging, you can put the seat into snooze mode. That drops the backrest all the way back, and it kicks up a sort of a additional bolster, like the sort of thing that you get on an international flight, you know, where just in front of the squab that you sit on, there's another bit that will reach up and you can rest your legs and have a nap while you're charging. But here's the thing, I'm not sure you're going to need that often, because this car charges as fast as you can get a charger. Really, you've got to go to faster than 200 kilowatts, I think, to maximise the potential of this car to get energy in it. And I've managed beautifully well the whole time. I said at the start of this programme that I was going to do something really smart, drive a great car, and perhaps do something really daft. A daft thing was attempt to do this over the holiday period, expecting to queue for charging. Well, I have a little bit. But as soon as you get on, bang, you stick the power in, and if you plan your route carefully, you can find fast enough chargers. I'm currently sat at an Instavolt charger in Corley Services near Birmingham, and I got out of the car with 13% charge in it, put it on a 50 kilowatt charger, and then went over, got a burger, went to the toilet, came back. That took 25 minutes, and I've come back to the car that is now 60% charged, and it'll be 80% charged in 19 minutes, and I don't need that. I've only got 100 and something miles to do before I'm home in North London. There's more than enough charge in the car to get me there now, so I can get home and I can charge using one of those street lamp chargers that are in my neighbourhood. So there you go, I'm learning how to use an electric car here in the future. We'll all need to do this at some point, and we're still in the relatively early adopter days, but it's clearly doable and easier than ever now. Believe me, there are drawbacks if you can't charge at home, but we've discussed that. There are three other things I must mention about this car. Number one, the lighting on the interior is just great. Depending on what mode you're in, eco, normal or sport, the speakers down in the footwells change the colour of the light ring around them. They're green because I've been driving around in eco, blue if you're driving around in normal, red if you're driving around in sport. Now, here's how good this car is. I've driven it in eco mode almost the whole time I've had it. Almost the whole time. Occasions, I went through Snowdonia on New Year's Eve for a drive around, put it in sport there, and that was just great. It's planted It's wide, you know, it doesn't roll. Like I said, it's softly sprung and firmly damped. It doesn't feel like a lively car. It feels more like a cruiser or a GT, a long-distance car, than a sports car. And I think 4-5 adults would have a very comfortable time in here. A downside of this flat floor thing, this is something to watch out for. I've learnt from this. You know, because there's no transmission tunnel, and you know I was saying that you could reach over from the driver's seat and put your feet in the front passenger footwell from the driver's seat. That means that there's a gap there, right? And I keep my bag with all my bits in it, my computer and charger and all that stuff, and this recorder, in the footwell, the passenger footwell. And I went round a roundabout with a little bit of excitement and left it. And as I left it, you know, hard left, my bag rolled or tumbled from the front passenger footwell to my footwell before it got in the way of my feet and pedals, but it could well have got in the way of my feet and pedals. So I've learned that's the one downside of this flat floor. You can't put bags on the floor. They're going to roll underneath your legs and get in the way of the pedals. So put my bag on the back seat, I think, or on the floor in front of the back seat. One final thought on this car. Looking at my average energy use whilst I've been driving it over this last week, it's averaging 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. Now that's not as good as the MG I had. That got 3.4 and regularly showed 3.7. This car's never got that. So it's not quite as efficient in terms of long-leggedness as you can get these days. But my gosh, it's better than good enough. It really is. Big fan of this car. Do you remember there was a song a long time ago called Sorted for Ease and Whiz? Well, that's this car. It's sorted for ease. You can get loads of energy in that battery very quickly, enough for big long journeys between London and North Wales without having to stop every half an hour or an hour or even 2 hours. You know, it's a 3.5 hour car, this, I think. So it's sorted for ease, and it's got plenty of whiz as well. Because as I was coming down the A41 earlier on, again, I popped it into sport mode just to see how it would pass things. And oh my gosh, it's got plenty of performance. So this car is sorted for ease and whiz. What are Hyundai gonna do next? I can't imagine. I'm gonna have to try and find out. That's it. You've been listening to Gareth Jones on Speed, the first episode for 2023. Stay with me for 2023, and if you enjoy the show, please share links to this programme or tweet me, message me, come to the Facebook site. All the information is at the end of the programme. But please, get in touch, because the more I hear from you, the more people I know are listening, the longer this show will run. Take care and Happy New Year.
For information on how to contact the show, see pictures, get song lyrics, follow us on Twitter, find our Facebook fan page, or to sponsor the show, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones!